Hello everyone, and welcome to the second of a few videos that is revising the Leaving Cert business curriculum. Today we're having a look at entrepreneurs and managers, which is units 2 and 3. I've grouped these together because they're relatively short and they definitely interlink. So a couple of tips: pause whenever you need, screenshot freely, watch the first time without taking notes, take notes on the second time, try the questions in your head before you write them down. And another one is just change the video speed if you need. If you want to speed it up, slow it down, that's perfectly fine. So we're going to cover entrepreneurship, management skills like leadership, communication, and motivation, and management activities like controlling, organizing, and planning. So entrepreneurship, what is it? It's basically starting something new and taking a risk to try and make a profit. An entrepreneur is the person who spots the opportunity and takes the risk and the initiative to start something new. So, for example, Brian Lee made Chopped because he saw a lack of healthy fast food, and James Dyson made the Dyson vacuum because he was disappointed with his own Hoover. The benefits and risks of being an entrepreneur. Well, the benefits: you get to be your own boss, you can keep all the money you make, you can follow your dreams, and you get a personal sense of satisfaction and achievement. The risks are, of course, you have to do stressful and long hours when you're starting up a business. It's very hard to get money from investors. There's obviously a big risk of it failing. As we saw before, 1 in 3 new Irish businesses fail in the first 5 years. The characteristics and skills, what do these entrepreneurs have to actually be like? Well, they have to be proactive. They have to be able to take action. They have to be independent. They have to drive themselves, give them their own motivation. They have to be confident and believe in themselves that they're not going to fail. They have to have a need to actually have success to achieve something. If you don't have that need, you won't have that drive. You have to be a risk taker. You have to accept that it might not all go to plan. There's a bit of uncertainty. You have to be creative. You have to think outside the box, come up with a new solution to a problem. I mean, James Dyson, he was upset with his Hoover, so he came up with the solution to get rid of the cord. You have to be decisive. You have to make quick calls. And the skills, you have to be able to get on good with people. If you're getting money from investors, you have to be able to communicate with them. Time management, you have to prioritize your work. You have to say, well, what's the most important thing? What do I need to do first? Risk management, you have to be able to plan. If something goes wrong, what will you do then? And of course, decision making, you need to be able to choose the best option. If you've got some different things coming up, you have to know what's the best thing to make. And you also have to see things for what they are. You have to have a perception on reality. If you think of an idea, say flying cars, but you know you're not going to do that in a year, you have to be realistic about that, not delusional. And you also have to be flexible. You have to adapt when things go wrong. If something happens, you have to have a plan B. You have to do something else. So, entrepreneurs, we saw before, they're employees who act like entrepreneurs within a company. So, the example we saw before, the Microsoft ideas, saw how successful the PlayStation was. They pitched the idea of a games console to Bill Gates and they made the Xbox. The advantages of entrepreneurs: it keeps their firm competitive with new ideas, it motivates the staff to have better performance, you get new ideas, so you get higher sales from your new products, and it also lowers costs through innovation. If you find a way to do something cheaper, you're going to be able to cut your costs. So, how do you encourage it? Well, make sure your employees have the freedom to fail. You don't punish them if they make a mistake. Give them financial rewards like bonuses or shares of any product they might come up with. Make sure you have some teamwork and brainstorming so that they can come up with new ideas, and also give them some time to be creative. For example, Google gives their employees 20% of time to think of new creative ideas. So, what's the importance of enterprise? In business, it obviously creates new ideas and products. Entrepreneurship can cut costs and boost business sales, and it generates profits and wages for the entrepreneur and then the employees, which gives you an economic spin off. People have more money, so they spend more money, which means more people get more money, they spend more money, and so on and so forth. And it also increases the tax revenue for the government so they can build communities. And in the local community, it creates jobs for local people and improves the living standards. People have more money to spend. It encourages local spending, of course. It inspires others to be enterprising. If they see someone in their community that's been really successful, they're going to want to do something similar. And it also improves infrastructure and services through that increased tax revenue. So here's just a couple of review questions. And the next thing we're going to have a look at is management. This is very quick, very easy. So, what is management? It's using people and resources to achieve the goals of a business. The manager's job is to run the business and make sure that these goals and objectives are met. And every business has a management team, and this is led by a managing director, who we know as the CEO. Your characteristics, they have to be decisive, they have to show initiative, they have to be good with people, they have to be hardworking, and they have to be flexible, they have to be charismatic, very similar to entrepreneurs. The other thing is they have to be charismatic, they have to be able to persuade their employees to work hard, and they have to show initiative that they can act without being told what to do by the entrepreneur. So enterprise versus management, what's the difference? Well, enterprise is where you set up a business, you take a bigger risk of potentially losing your business and your money, you focus on the long-term goals, and ultimately you have control over the business. Whereas the manager, they run the business, there's a smaller risk. The worst that can happen is that they lose their job. They just focus on the day-to-day goals of the business and they answer to the entrepreneur. They're not in charge. So management outside of business, we do see management in our home. So you can manage the budgets and bills of the house. In the community, you might organize a tidy towns committee. In the school, a principal is the person who manages the staff and the students. And in the government, different ministers will manage their own departments. So here's a couple of review questions for management. And now looking at your management skills, your leadership, your communication, your motivation. We get a bit bulkier in the information here, so if you need to slow down, feel free. So, what is leadership and what are your types of leadership? Your definition is that leadership is the ability to influence and direct others towards achieving the same goals as you. There are three types. You have your autocratic, which is where the manager makes all the decisions. There's no room for delegation. And this is good for, training new employees or in emergency situations like in an operating theater, you need your manager to make the decision on what you do with a patient that is, on the operating table. Your democratic leader is where the manager involves the employees in making decisions. They will explain and reason their own perspectives, but they also delegate authority. We're going to have a look at that in the next slide. This is your main kind of style of leadership, especially in offices. However, your decisions can take a little bit longer to make than in autocratic. And you also have laissez faire, which is when the manager lets the employees kind of do their own thing and make decisions for themselves. The manager is going to give them a goal and they're going to give them a time limit. This is really good for jobs that you need to do a lot of research and development. However, some employees find it difficult to work without being supervised. So, delegation, we were talking before, what is this? Your definition is that it's assigning a task to an employee so the manager doesn't have to do it. You need good, competent staff, you need good control systems, and you also need a lot of trust in your employees. Your benefits, of course, it frees the manager to do their own stuff. It can train and empower employees. It boosts their motivation, and it also saves time by giving more work across a number of employees. Why is leadership important? It's important for efficiency, that your workers know what to do, your coordination, that people work better together, your retention, that employees actually want to stay, they don't want to leave, and change management, that if anything new happens in the business, you're able to manage that really well and that all goes smoothly. We're going to have a look at that in the next unit. So motivation, your definition, it's the process of encouraging employees to work harder and to achieve the same goals in the business. You can motivate them financially by giving them more money, or non-financially by praising them, giving them promotions, giving them more work, etc. So motivation is really good for productivity and performance, to encourage entrepreneurship, to obviously keep your staff, and industrial relations, that employers and employees like each other. So your first theory of motivation is Douglas McGregor, X versus Y. X managers, they think that employees are lazy and dislike work. They think that employees are motivated by fear if they do bad and money if they do good. But this honestly creates a poor morale and it's not very good. Whereas Y managers, they think that employees are motivated by responsibility, that they're motivated by trust and delegation and promotions. And this is overall better because it creates a commitment between the manager and the employee, and it creates more innovation as well. Your second theory is your hierarchy of needs. You're going to see the pyramid. You probably would recognize this. This believes that people are motivated by their needs, from basic needs to higher needs. When one need is satisfied, they don't care about that anymore and they go to the next one. So your first need is your physiological, is your basic needs for survival, like food, water, and shelter. And businesses give this through fair pay and maybe a canteen at work. Next is your safety, which is your job security and your stability. Businesses do this by giving employees a contract or giving them insurance, medical insurance. Next is your social need. This is the need for friendship. Businesses can do this through team working, having social events, social life. Your esteem is your need for respect and achievement. Businesses can do this by giving praise and promotions. And your self actualization need is when all of these are met, you just want to grow and develop yourself as a person. Businesses can do this by giving you more responsibilities. And this is, of course, your pyramid for your hierarchy of needs. If you recognize this, maybe from the internet, maybe from memes, this is what that actually is in a business sense. So your communication, what is it? It's transferring information from one person to another. That's a very basic definition. You can have internal communication, which is within the business, like meetings, or you can have external communication, which is outside the business, like if you're doing a press conference. You can have written communication like your letters, your documents, your emails. The advantages of this is that it gives you a permanent record of what was said, and it's also pretty fast. With email nowadays, you can get a message across in seconds, but it's slower than oral communication, and it can be quite overwhelming if there's a lot of information. Your oral is obviously your conversations, your meetings, your phone calls. It's really quick, it's personal, and it adds tone. You can actually see what someone's saying, you can hear the emotion, the body language, but there's no proof of it happening unless you record it. It's quite unpredictable what people are going to say, and it's also easy to kind of zone out and ignore. Your visual is your graphs, your charts, your pie charts, everything like that. It's really good because it's clear and simple, but it has a very limited use. You can only really use it for statistics, and also you probably need to include written or oral communication when you're using it. So your types of written communication, you have your memo, which is your brief internal note through the business. Your letter is very formal and professional. This reads a lot like an email. And your business report is your detailed information or investigation of something. This is how it's structured. You have your title, your contents, your summary. Your issue would kind of be, why are you making the report? So you'd have your findings, your conclusions and recommendations, your appendix, and the sources you used for your report. It's a lot like an academic paper if you've ever seen one of those. So that's your memo. You have your to, from, your date, your subject, your really quick message, and then you sign off. This is your letter. So you have the reference, the date. You can see this reads a lot like an email. You say why you were writing, your facts, your conclusions, and you sign off. And this is your report. It's a lot chunkier. You have your to, from, your date, your terms of reference. This is, your issue. And then you give them your findings, your conclusions, your recommendations at the end. And then there's obviously no appendix or source for this. And then you'd sign off. So your business meetings are oral communication. You have your different types of meetings. You have AGMs, your annual general meeting. This is once a year. It reviews your finance and performance. Your EGM, your extraordinary general meeting, this deals with urgent issues that can't wait till the next EGM. You have your statutory meeting, which is your first ever meeting when you're setting up a company. And you have your board meeting, which is usually once a month. This is where all the directors come together to set goals for the business. Your elements of a meeting, you need a notice, which is a time and place. You need an agenda, which is the topics you're going to talk about. You need your quorum, which is your minimum attendance. You need your chairperson who runs the meeting. They start it, they end it. They also will call votes. And you need your secretary who organizes the meeting. They make the notice and the agenda, and they'll record the minutes. And the minutes is basically a brief summary. So you can have the last year's minutes. If people want to discuss that, then you have your reports, your plans for the next year, and any other business that might occur. So moving on to information and communications technology, basically how has technology influenced communication? So you have EDI, which is your electronic data interchange. This is when you have automatic document transfers between different businesses. Your video conferencing is, of course, your online meetings. We saw a lot of this in COVID over Zoom. Internet obviously is good for researching, it's good for ads, and it's good for e-commerce if you want to set up a shop, maybe on Amazon or Shopify. Email, of course, is your fast, low-cost communication. It's a lot quicker than sending a letter. The advantages of EDI is that obviously it's quick, you use less paper when you're doing email and EDI, and it's also cost saving. If you're doing video conferencing, you don't have to pay for travel costs for different people having to come into the office. But your limitations is, of course, it depends that everyone has to have access to the internet. So your data protection rights under GDPR is you have the right to know what data is being collected and who is collecting it. You have the right to access, change, or delete your data upon request. You have the right to object to data collection, whether that's them manually collecting it or automatically collecting it. You're allowed to say no. And data controllers who collect your data, these must process your data lawfully and fairly. They have to keep your data secure and report any breaches that happen. And they have to give you a copy of your data or delete your data when they no longer need it. And then the Data Protection Commission is basically the department that runs this and makes sure it's all good and legal. They have to investigate any complaints, they enforce compliance, and they fine if there's any breaches. And they also will inform the public about their rights under GDPR. So, how do you maintain good communication? Well, you have to consider a couple of factors. What's the cost going to be like? You know, Zoom, having a meeting on Zoom is a lot cheaper than traveling. How urgent is it? Can you give them a phone call, or is it okay? Can you send them an email? They can reply later. Is it confidential? Do you have to have a face to face conversation? What's the content like? If it's really long, maybe send it in an email. If it's short, you can have a phone call with someone. What's the legalities of it? If it's a contract, does it have to be in writing? If it's a mortgage, does it have to be in writing? And some general tips for good communication. Use clear language, don't make it technical, avoid your jargon, keep it short and simple. People like to listen to short summaries, kind of like this video. Be open and tolerant to people. Don't not listen to someone because you have a bad idea of them. Communicate in good time, make sure you're not sending it at the last minute, and listen carefully. And most of all, just be honest and be respectful when you're communicating. So management skills in the community. So home, let's say your enterprise is going to be converting an attic to a study room. You're going to lead by planning out what you're going to do. You're going to motivate your helpers by giving them money, and you're obviously going to communicate with any builders that might be helping to renovate your attic. In your local area, your enterprise is setting up a tidy towns committee. You're going to delegate, you're going to lead by delegating work to different volunteers. You're going to motivate by praising effort, and you're going to communicate by explaining the different roles and duties of the volunteers. In the school, your enterprise could be making a TY musical or a TY play. You're going to lead by assigning roles to different students. You're going to motivate through teamwork, having students work together, and you're going to make sure you communicate clearly what you want each person to do. In the government, your enterprise could be cost of living supports during COVID. You're obviously going to manage by delegating different work to the finance department, to the Department of Social Protection. You're going to motivate through incentives for businesses that you say will give you some extra money to help out that you don't shut down. And you're obviously going to communicate by advertising your support in newspapers, online, saying, this is available, come get it. So here are your review questions for that. And finally, we're going to have a look at management activities, your controlling, organizing, and planning. So, planning, first of all, you have four main steps. You have to make a SWOT analysis, which goes over the strengths and your weaknesses, your opportunities and threats. Your strengths and weaknesses are going to be from within the business. Your opportunities and threats are going to be outside the business. You're going to set your objectives, which are your SMART goals. You're going to make a strategy, like a low cost strategy, which is like what Ryanair does, or you can make a brand, or you can have niche marketing, which is when you appeal to a small group of people. And then you obviously will implement your plan. So you have different plan types. You have a mission plan, which is kind of your overall goal of the business. Like, why does your business exist? For example, an airline, it could be the biggest airline in the world. You have your strategic plan, which is your long-term plan, what you're going to do over a few years. For the airline, this could be having a fifth of all EU USA flights in the next 5 years. Your tactical plan is your short-term plan, what you're going to do immediately. For the airline, this could be launching flights between Dublin and New York in the next 6 months. And then you have your contingency plan, which is your plan B. You never really want this to happen. So planning is good for getting loans from investors to show them how you're going to work over the next few years. It's good for motivating staff. It's good for reducing the risk and uncertainty in the future. You know what you're going to do, and it guides the business to success. It pushes it in the right direction, and it makes your business stronger. Organizing, this involves arranging the staff and departments into different structures, like your functional structure. This is when you arrange it by each different department, your finance department, your HR department, your marketing department, and each one has a director. This is very good for specialization. Each department knows what they're doing, but it's bad for coordinating between different departments. You have your product department. This is when you arrange it by product. For example, Cadbury, they might have a flake department, they might have a Freddo department, and this is where you arrange it by product, and each product has a director. This is good for quality of products and competition between different departments, but it's bad for brand cannibalization. Essentially, what brand cannibalization means is that when you make one product, it's going to steal sales from a different one, but overall, you don't actually make any extra money. Your third is your geographical. This is when you make it by region. For example, Vodafone has an Ireland department and they also have a UK department, and each country has a regional director. This is good for local needs because you get to understand which country you're dealing with more, but it's also bad because you end up duplicating your departments and it might lead to higher costs. Your matrix department is when you're making project teams to your functional department. This is good because it gets rid of that bad coordination and it helps with ideas, but it's bad for decision speed because now you've got even more project teams that you have to report to and your decisions are going to be slower. In your structures, there's always going to be a chain of command. Basically, you can tell people below you what to do, but you get told what to do by people above you. You have a span of control. This is who reports directly to you. This can be narrow or wide. It depends on how good your employees are, how much you trust them, what kind of work you're doing. You have your line organization, which is basically your different departments like HR, management, or finance, or marketing, etc. And then you also have your staff departments. These are the people who advise the line departments. These can be your legal department, your technology department, etc. And organization is good for efficiency. You get to solve problems quickly if you have a good organizational structure. It helps manage change with different departments. If something new happens, you at least have that structure that they kind of know where they're going to be anyways. And it minimizes any overlapping work. It makes sure that you don't have two teams working on the same thing, that you have one team working on this and one team working on that. Your last thing is controlling. This involves setting goals, reviewing your performance, measuring your progress, and taking action to improve. So, your advantages of controlling is that you make sure your objectives are met in the business, it lowers the costs of the business, it improves your sales and profits, and you have a lot of different types of controlling. Your first type is your stock control. This is making sure there's enough products or materials in a shop or a factory. This involves reordering materials when they're low, for example, just in time or ordering, which is when you order materials when you get to a certain limit. So, say you're selling yogurts, you have 100 and you want to get to 1000, you'll always order an extra 900 yogurts when you get to 100 yogurts. This makes sure there's not too little or too much stuff. It also lowers the costs of insurance. If you have extra stuff, you're obviously going to need to store that somewhere and insure that. It also reduces your security costs, that you don't have to have someone overnight maybe watching your factory. Your second is quality control. This is making sure your products are high standard. You can do this through physically inspecting your products, or you can make a group for quality control. They're going to talk about the quality, what they think is going good and bad, or you can get an ISO 9000 quality award, the ISO 9000 award. You basically reach out to them, say, we think our product is really good. They review it, and if they think it's good, you get that award and you can say our products are ISO 9000 quality. This makes sure that your customers are happy with their products. It helps with marketing. If you have the ISO 9000, you can say our products are ISO 9000 approved, and it also lowers your redress costs. You're not going to have to deal with products breaking or people needing a refund, etc. Your credit control is making sure that your customers pay their bills on time. You can set a credit limit. You're going to check each customer if they're credit worthy. Make sure you send their invoices immediately when they pay. You let them know exactly what they owe you and have a collecting procedure for customers who do not pay. You can send the invoice out again. And obviously, worst case scenario, you're going to have to sue them and take them to court to pay the money back. This is good for your budgets, your budget management, reducing any bad debts, and it also keeps your sales to creditworthy customers that you're not going to have to lose any money. Your financial control is just keeping a budget, having a cash flow forecast, and having a ratio analysis. We're going to have a look at that in the next unit. So here's a review questions for the management activities. And that is everything from entrepreneurship and management. I'll be back soon with the next unit, which is business operations. We'll have a look at that. But that is all for today. Hope you enjoyed this one. I'll see you in the next unit. And thank you very much for watching.